एकम् अक्षरं हृदि निरन्तरं भासते स्वयं लिख्यते कथम्। हृदय कुहर मध्ये केवलं ब्रह्ममात्रम् यहम् इति साक्षात् आत्मरूपेण भाति। हृदि विषमनसा स्वं चिन्वता मज्जता वा पवनचलनरोधा आत्मनिष्ठो भवत्वम्। Namaste. My gratitude and thanks to Vaniji and Vasudev sir for this opportunity to share Bhagavan's teachings on self-enquiry. Am I audible?
Yes.
Very clear, sir.
Very clear. Very clear.
Okay. The topic that Vaniji and we discussed over and selected for this evening is a bridge to self-enquiry. This particular interaction that we are having, we can call it an online talk or online satsang. We could even treat it as a meditation. Meditation according to Bhagavan. When a English lady asks, what is this meditation? Then Bhagavan says, haven't you focused on a single topic in your mind for some time continuously without needing to express it in words outside? She says, yes. And Bhagavan says, that is meditation. So his approach to meditation is something quite broad, and one can treat the listening to each other either in this talk or in our day-to-day activities as a meditative way of life. Or of course, we can treat this as an opportunity to practice self-enquiry. This very opportunity that we share with each other. As far as my point of view is there as an individual, I was there before this event started. I am present right through the event, and there will be a place where the event ends and I will be. And the same is the case with each one of the listeners, each one of you. I become the Anatma. As far as each one of you is concerned, you are the Atma. You were there before you asked to be let into the group. You will be present, whatever the words I keep saying. and even after the event is ended, you will be present. So this whole event can be conducted or can be gone through by each one of us as an opportunity for self-attention. We of course have some other teachers who treat each such opportunity as a witnessing opportunity. Could we listen without judging as good and bad in the present moment, mindfully. So the very same event can be looked at as a talk being listened to, or a meditation, or a witnessing opportunity where the consciousness puts on aspects that is free of the division of good and bad and free of the division of past, present, future. And in the present, just looks without the division of good and bad, or in other words, witnessing. But what Bhagavan teaches is that in all these, you are present. The self is always present. And you don't even need to judge how focused you are, or whether you are wearing the glasses that is free of the tints of good and bad, or whether even your mind is going off into the past or future. You need not observe that if you are holding self-attention. That who is the listener, who is present before the talk, who is present during, and the talk too shall pass and you will be present, and hold on to that. This can of course be practiced in an even simpler way. You have a cup of tea. While having the cup of tea, before having it, you are there. During the act, you are there. After the tea is complete, also you are present. So, can we practice attention on oneself when that act is going on? One can do that while walking in the park. That while walking in the park and listening to this satsang, one can pay attention as no traffic is hindering us. One can pay attention to who is the listener. Initially, it will appear as though that excludes what you are listening to. But with practice, it will include the act of listening. As with any other activity, initially it will appear to be exclusive. That you have to put aside other things to attend to the self. But let that be initially so. And this very talk is aimed at sharing self-inquiry. So I wouldn't mind if you don't catch the meaning or the intonations of the words that I am saying, but you are self-attentive. That is the very purpose of this sharing. So that is treating every event as an opportunity for self-attention. Initially, simple acts, routine acts, like when one is bathing, or when one is walking, or when one is doing some routine actions where the mind is free, one can practice self-attention. Of course, there is the opportunity to sit, go inward, not go the way of the senses, and keep the thoughts that arise as the scene, as the events that appear and disappear, and inquire for whom has this thought arisen? When we inquire, for whom has this thought arisen? The answer will be, this thought has arisen for me. And who am I? Completes the self-enquiry. Now, this is what is the practice of self-enquiry, and it is not limited to the moments we allot for it for sitting and practicing. Right now, each one of us is present, and from our perspective, whatever we see is only the object of perception. So turning the attention inward, away from the object of perception, one should pay attention to one's own being or existence. Now, in this practice, the topic we have taken up is a bridge to self-enquiry. We have this need for a bridge only when we find ourselves on the other bank of a river. You are on the very bank you want to be, then you don't need a bridge or a boat. What is intended by that analogy is that if you are directly able to do self-enquiry, understanding that it is the essence of meditation, it is the essence of judgment-free observation, because even that objectivity is not present. There is only attention on the subject. So understanding that if one can practice self-enquiry directly, there is no need for any bridge. You are on the bank you want to be. For instance, Bhagavan would give the bridge of pranayama. He would say that if the mind is going very fast, it is going so fast that you are not able to still it, then you can pay attention to the breath. And when you pay attention to the breath, then senses related and breath related, that means the strong emotions related thoughts, they all subside. And in that relative quiet, what Bhagavan calls as laya, one can start self-enquiry. There is an incident in my sharing of self-enquiry. This had happened about 12 or more years before. My brother's son had come down here into our home, and he was asking, what is this self-enquiry all about? I said, why don't you sit and practice with me? All you have to do is observe your thoughts. As each thought arises, understand that is the non-self. It is not you. It is like your shirt or other possessions. So diligently inquire, for whom is this thought? The answer will come. This thought is for me. Make the inquiry, who am I? And we sat down. Let us sit for a minute. You can try that with me. Just for a minute. Observe your thoughts. As each thought arises, diligently inquire, for whom is this thought? Do not try to complete that thought. The answer to the question, for whom is this thought? The answer will be, this thought is for me. Then still that I with who am I? Let us sit in practice for a minute. So those who could observe and let go of a thought, you are already on the right bank. You don't need a bridge. And Ramana says, even if a single thought is still for a trace, the smallest of moments, that takes you a long way towards the self. Back to the story. And the nephew who had come down, he was a chartered accountant, and he said, as soon as we chanted Om and came to the objective space again, he said, Chitapa, I could not hold anything. The thoughts were running so fast that I could not hold anything. So I shared with him the bridge. He was not on the other, he was on the other bank. He wanted some bridge to cross over to self-enquiry. So I shared with him the pranayama. I said, observe the breath for a few moments. You will find that the force of thoughts, the force of that flow of thoughts will come down phenomenally. And your thoughts will allow you to inquire for whom is this thought. So let's do that. Just observe your breath for a few moments. Even those who have directly done, you can directly do. Those who want the support of breath, just take that. Just 1 more minute, let's practice. So he said, Siddhapa, the thoughts did stop. When I observed the breath, the thoughts did stop. But the moment I wanted to start self-inquiry, the current had all its force, all its power came back, and I could not continue. Then I told him what would happen to me in Tiruvannamalai in the initial years, in the year 2004, 5, 6, when I was staying in Tiruvannamalai and was allowed to practice self-inquiry almost to the exclusion of everything else. Those 3 years, the backdrop being that I had come to self-inquiry directly to who am I after the practice of the observation of thoughts without judgment. Therefore, the Bhakti Marga supports or the Bhakti Marga bridges I was not aware of, or that is what I was thinking. And what would happen in Tiruvannamalai was, I was sharing with my nephew that whenever I could not do self-inquiry, I wanted to do but did not have the strength of whatever you may call it. You may call it tapas, you may call it sadhana. When that strength was lacking, somehow I would say Ramana, 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 just 2 or 3 times, and the self-enquiry will start. I would have the strength to do self-enquiry. So I shared that with him. So that is another bridge. It is another story that a miracle happened to him the next day in the consulate in Calcutta, where he went from Bangalore. He was required to take some documents. He was in a very responsible post and he was to get a permits to stay in US. For that, he had to take some documents which he had left behind. And the announcement was nobody without the document would be processed. And then he remembered, or he was made to remember the previous day's discussions. And he held the Deva Nama that we had exchanged as Ramana, Ramana, Ramana. And it is in his consciousness that helped him get through that process without even the documents asked of others. That's another story, but we have to get back to Atma Vichara. So that is another bridge, the bhakti that each one of us have done. Let's say somebody has had bhakti towards Narasimha Swami. You hold his nama. That will help you start Atma Vichara. One of the Ashtotara namas of Narasimha Swami is Om Parabrahmane Nama. In almost all the Ashtotrams, we will find that Om Parabrahmane Namaha. Each of those namas, without fail, will take us to the self only. And Bhagavan himself says, no one needs to force another into any path. Any path each jiva finds easy is the right path for him. This is Bhagavan's words in Day by Day with Bhagavan. No one needs to force another. There can be a suggestive exchange, but the light is within each one of us. And therefore, each one has their path, and that is why we are discussing these bridges suggestively, not as a thrust or a force, that see, these options are there for one to make a beginning in self-enquiry. That pranayama could be a bridge. That the nama of the Ishta Devata, which has brought us to meditation in all these years, that could be the support to start. It will still the mind enough for one to start. For whom is this thought? And in Bhagavan's teachings, we find any part of the teachings that the devotee or disciple loves, that can be a bridge. Vaniji is so good in sharing Upadesha Saram, the teachings of Ramana in Upadesha Saram. That can be a support. The verses 16 to 20 especially on the path of self-enquiry can be a support. Any one verse can be a support, can be a bridge. Any one verse of Upadesha Saram you like can be a bridge. Drishyavaritam chittamatmanah chitva darshanam tatva darshanam. That is verse number 16. Drishyavaritam. Drishya is obviously not the Atma. So Drishyavaritam, the attention that is going behind the object, like this talk is Drishya for each one of you. Chittam Atmanah, draw that Chittam and fix it on that Atma, then you have Chitva Darshanam, the light that is aware of itself. Just meditate on that one thing, that what is in front of us when we do self-enquiry. When Chittamatmanaha is there, Drishyavaritam Chittamatmanaha, then that ray of light which was going behind Anatma Vastu is now turning back and merging into the ever-present self-luminous self. So what light was revealing and running after the outer universe finds that the self itself is the universe. Whenever non-self appears, one has to put it aside and hold the light again. What will happen? This what will happen is also Namkavaste, because when that ray of light which was going towards Anatma is turning towards the Atman, in that self-luminous light, there is no time and space. Time and space are Anatma in that self-luminous self. So it is not that it becomes, the sadhana has led to the self-luminous light. No. It is that the self-luminous light is there without beginning, middle and end. One immediately realizes the truth behind Bhagavad Gita verse. Ahamatma Gudakesha Sarvabhuta Shayastitaha Ahamadischa Madhyamcha Bhutanam Antayevacha. In that self-luminous light, self-luminous self, the beginning, middle and end of whole creation vanishes, is absorbed and it vanishes. What Sri Krishna is saying is that the self alone is there. Self is the universe, self is you, self is God. All the three are merged. One verse of Upadesha Saram or one verse of Bhagavad Gita Saram. Bhagavan has translated, not translated, he has selected the Sara. It is not a neglect of gems from Bhagavad Gita. No. He entitles it, these 42 verses, as Bhagavad Gita Saram, the essence. And the more you meditate on those 42 verses, the more clearer it is how Bhagavan has extracted the essence from all the chapters, keeping self-enquiry as the essence, as the key, but not leaving any aspect of any of the 18 chapters, including all that and bringing the essence in that translation. That could be a bridge. Ulladu Narpadu, the Saddarshanam, that could be a bridge. In Saddarshanam, the whole focus in those 42 verses is only on the Ullaporul, that which is the Atman, the Brahman. One verse from Ulladu Narpadu. For instance, please permit me to quote in Tamil. Bhagavan says, Tanmai undel munnilai padarkaigal tamulava. That whole verse in English is, only after the first person arises, the second and third persons arise. If one inquires into the truth of the first person relentlessly, then that first person arising as a separate entity from Atman vanishes. The first arisal of ego from the Brahman, it vanishes. When that is eliminated, when the first person is eliminated, then the second person and third person, which includes the whole creation, it vanishes without a trace. And all shine as one, the self-luminous self, says that verse. Now, who is that first person? He is that Sakshi. He is the unaffected witness. Bhagavan, literally in self-enquiry, takes us to the grace of God, reveals that it is the grace of God that has allowed your sadhana to be continuous, and takes that grace of God and merges that into the Atman. That grace of God and Atma Swarupa are not different. In Arunachala Ashtakam, where Bhagavan reveals his biography and Atma Vichara Sadhana, Bhagavan says, "Oh Arunachala, you are the existence consciousness. You are the Sat Chitta which shines within each one of us. You are the thread that connects the beads, called all the jivas, all the branches of religions, all the various paths of thought. It is you, the existence consciousness, who remains as a thread and connects all of them." And then comes in Ashtakam, Mana Manamenum Kallil Maruvarakadaya Nin Aruloli Mevi. When in that stone called the mind, when you churn, in the support we are going to really take up called Atma Bodha, we get this word, the churning. When that churning happens, "Oh Arunachala, your grace will rise and consume us as a fountain, Aruloli Mev, and it will consume the whole of creation." So the essence of bhakti and essence of jnana comes through in that Arunachala Ashtakam. So a devotee could have that as a bridge. And Bhagavan has translated the works of Adi Shankar, which is the topic for our evening. My suggestion for the evening was a few verses from Atma Bodha as a bridge to self-enquiry. And Varniji had rightly brought it to, why don't we keep it as a bridge to self-enquiry, which allowed the whole expansiveness of the coverage that I could do, that I could take up the various branches of spiritual teachings in Bhagavan, which could work as bridges. She had suggested, in that brevity and preciseness, it had expanded the scope, that a bridge to self-enquiry came to be the topic for this evening. One of the translations of Adi Shankara we find from Bhagavan, apart from Sri Dakshinamurti Stotram, Hastamalaka Stotram, Guru Stuti, apart from these, we find Atma Bodha has been translated by Bhagavan Sri Ramana into Tamil. Sometime in the 1940s, a Mohammedan scholar, sends two translations of Atma Bodha, two books of a singular translation, two volumes to Bhagavan. As soon as he prints and publishes them, he sends them to the ashram. And Bhagavan is going through them, and he suddenly gets this, which is very rare, almost from 1928 onwards to 1940, there has been no original work from Bhagavan or translations made, as I remember. But we find this particular initiative coming, that on seeing those books, we find in an earlier interaction with Sri Lakshman Sharma. Sri Lakshman Sharma is a devotee and disciple. He is a naturopath, very well known in Bangalore. Even now, there are naturopathy institutes which follow his findings. Lakshman Sharma finds that the Saddarshanam of Bhagavan has been misinterpreted by someone and published. And he asks Ramana, why don't we publish a correction or an objection to that, even when you are, within inverted commas, alive? This can happen. We should refute that. And Bhagavan says to Lakshman Sharma, there will be a purpose for that. Do you feel you can write better? Then he says, yes, I feel I can write better. He says, you write that, you do that. And for 4 years, Lakshman Sharma translates that Saddarshanam Ulladu Narpadu into Sanskrit. So, as soon as these books are received, I don't know what went through, but Bhagavan decides to translate into Tamil on his own. He decides to go through that, and all the 68 verses are translated. And of course, on completion, Muruganar says, Muruganar is one of the devotees of Bhagavan, and you may find the reverence they have quite overflowing. He says, just like the Vedas come and stand in front of Brahma at the beginning of every new yuga, so that that yuga can flow along those lines. Just like that, Atma Bodha has come and stood in front of you, he says, and Ramana puts it in a different perspective. He says that whatever is written is already written by the Ishvara. So now, if I claim that I have translated, somebody may come here and claim that it was his. He narrates the incident in Jayadeva's life, where Jayadeva has worked Gita Govindam, and he is presenting the work for the release in the king's court. And just as he is about to announce the release of the work, there enters a very old Brahmin into the court hall and says, stop. Only a new work is worthy of release. Something that has already been in circulation should not be given this honor. And Jayadeva says, you are such an aged person, so I hesitate to say anything against you. But sir, this is the first time that this book is being released. No eyes other than mine have fallen on these words. And that old Brahmin is supposed to have said, take that verse in this page, I will narrate it. And he narrates that verse. Similarly, he narrates the contents of the Gita Govindam in various places, and Jayadeva is said to have come running down and fallen at his feet, and this could be no other than Hari himself. Who else is the witness within us, witnessing every thought and every act that we do? The Sarva Vyapi has alone appeared here, he says, and falls at his feet. And Ramana says that somebody may enter this ashram and say that this translation was theirs. That means the Ishvara himself always has the right that whatever is done, whatever is spoken, no jiva has any copyright over anything. So the Ishvara can appear anytime and claim, what is this? You claim originality over the words you have said. I have been behind you all the time. Now that first person which was there in the Ulladu Narpadu, we said Bhagavan takes us to that Ishvara. He takes us to the grace, the light of grace. And that light of grace is not apart from the self. The light of grace and the light of self, the self-luminous self, is one and the same. And that is what the sadhaka is. The whole of the sadhaka's journey, that I was born in 1962. In 1993, this happened. And in 1997, somebody put me through meditation. And then in 2003, I came upon self-enquiry. That story, it vanishes. When that vanishes, the story of all the jivas, what Jung and Campbell in psychology call as the hero's journey, all that is absorbed in the self. There is no story to tell. There is only the self-luminous self. All these narratives that we have are the anatman and are absorbed. Bhagavan's life, which is so revered, as between 1879 and 1950, the Narasimha Swami we were referring to, his life and his continuing miracles, all of that gets absorbed in the self. So we find that any of these teachings we could develop as a bridge for coming to self-enquiry. In my case, I used to refer to the talks with Sri Ramana Maharshi, Ulladu Narpadu, the Parayanam that they used to do in the ashram about Bhagavan's works. Those were the supports, the bridges that I had. Why I picked up the Atma Bodha translated by Bhagavan is that in whatever speech I take up, I am so lazy that whatever is work that I am going through at present in sharings, that I would like to take up because I can feel and talk about that. So we are discussing Atma Bodha in one other forum. That is how I picked up Atma Bodha verses. It could be anything that points you to self-enquiry. For me, the verses of Ulladu Narpadu would come, and I would be able to come to Atma Uchara. Uruvam Tanai Uladu Paramatram, verse number 4. If I am a form, then the world and God are forms. If inquiring into my form, I find that I am formless, then who is left to meditate on the form of the world, or how to meditate? So the world's form and God's form also merge into the self-luminous self is a verse in verse number 4. So whenever I remember that, I would immediately start self-enquiry. Slowly those bridges all get burnt. The Jnanagni consumes who am I itself. So all the bridges that you have taken will also get burnt in the Jnanagni. Only the self-luminous self will be there. But then let's go briefly at least to the topic of the evening. Before that, let us practice Atma Ucharam. I think we have time till 7:40. Then 10 minutes we can have question answer. Let's sit in Atma Ucharam for 3 minutes before I go into the verses, a little bit of Atma Bodha. 3 minutes, let us sit in Atma Vichara. Whenever a thought arises, ask for whom is this thought. The answer will come to me. Hold who am I. If you can directly hold the I, that is called as being still. The inquiry is, for whom is this thought, who am I? When you don't have thoughts and you are able to directly hold the I, that is called as summa irithal. And Ramana calls it as complete action. That summa irithal, directly holding the I, completely stilling the I, is complete action. Because the whole of the mind has to be there and it has to be done without break. So these are the two ways in which one can do self-enquiry. Allow the thought to come. Let it go by asking for whom is this thought? To me, who am I? Or directly hold the I. Let us do that for 3 minutes. My introduction to Atma Bodha was in the year 2004 when a series of talks were being given in town hall by Sri A. Parthasarthi, and they had also brought a book. I had attended the series of talks, and for 68 days, each day I would note down from that book the verse, the split meaning, the summary. Each verse would run to about a page in my that 200-page notebook. So that was one contact. And now, the last month or so, we have been meditating on the Atma Bodha verses. I take a few of the verses. You can get your inspiration from any part of it. Why I took Atma Bodha? You can take Dakshinamurti Stotram or Hastamalakam or Guru Stuti. These are the translations. Or Viveka Chudamani, Drigdrishya Viveka. Any of these you find interest, meditate on that. You will find lot of meaning in practicing self-enquiry. All those are directly implemented. The Nididhyasana part of those works are directly brought into practice in self-enquiry. So that is the point that we are trying to get at. That any of these works, what Nididhyasana, the bringing the teachings into our subconscious and transcending beyond the subconscious, that part will be done directly if one takes up self-enquiry along with meditation of any of those works. Drigdrishya Viveka, then Dakshinamurti Stotram, Atma Bodha or Viveka Chudamani or Guru Stuti, Hastamalaka, any of this, you will find self-inquiry is a support. So in Atma Bodha, I directly jump to 50th verse so that we get a summary of what sadhana is. Here the key word is Atma Rama. The Tirtva Moharnavam Hatva Raga Dveshadi Rakshasan Yogi Shanti Samayuktaha Atma Ramo Virajate Tirtva Moharnavam Hatva Raga Dveshadi Rakshasan Yogi Shanti Samayuktaha Atma Ramo Virajate. One of the names of Bhagavan in Ashtotram is Atma Ramaya Namaha. The one who is happy and is reveling in the Atman. This verse is supposed to be a condensation or the essence of Adhyatma Ramayana by Sri Shankara. The journey of the Jiva is the journey of the Jiva Rama as far as the Adhyatmic journey is concerned. The journey is considered to be the Moharnava, the ocean of delusion, of desire. The Jiva is pushed out by the Rakshasas called Ragadvesha. Ragadvesadi Rakshasan. Those Rakshasas have pushed out the Jiva across that ocean and have captured the Shanti, the Sita, into Sri Lanka, have kept her captive there. To be the Atma Rama, one has to win over the Rakshasas. Quell are those Rakshasas. How will they appear? The Rakshasas which are present as Vasanas. What are these Vasanas? Vasanas are in the subconscious. The average consciousness of the Jiva is not able to penetrate that. Therefore, the Jiva is pushed, is compelled to act by the presence of those Rakshasas as Vasanas. The like and the dislike into the worldly objects, they are all present in the Sukshma, in the subconscious. And in self-enquiry, what happens? How does Rama recapture the lost piece and becomes Atma Rama? Is that as each thought arises, pushed out by the Vasanas in the subconscious, in Atma Vichara, what we do? We have to let that thought go, not pursue on that thought, not build more Vasanas of Ragadvesha, but let that thought go, ask who am I, and hold the self. One thought eliminated, one set of Vasanas attacked, one set of enemies from within the fort expelled. So one crosses the Moharnavam by doing self-enquiry and recaptures the self that is within and understands that one's nature is only Atma Rama. Each one of us is only that. There is no each one. There is only the Atma Rama who is really present, the self-luminous self. Let us jump to a few other verses just to get some support, just to see how they can be bridged. The whole journey of the Jiva back to capture the Shanti is in self-enquiry, is present. Let us take verse number 2. In verse number 1, the qualifications of the seeker. Tapobhi Shinapapana. How the disciple becomes eligible for the Atma Bodha teachings. Shankara says, you must have done tapas and burnt the sins to a major extent, so that you are already having some degree of shanti. Mumukshunam apekshoyam. For those who are seeking liberation from this illusory moharnavam, for them I am composing this Atma Bodha, is how it begins. And the second verse which I am reading out, Bodhonya sadhane bhyobhihi sakshat mokshaika sadhanam pakasya vah nivajnanam vina moksho na siddhyate. These pakasya vah nivajnanam, this is what makes this whole Atma Bodha as a picture book. Vedanta is supposed to be abstruse and abstract, whereas Atma Bodha makes it simple by giving us the picturesque outlook in each of the verses. That Bodho Anya Sadhane Byohi Sakshat Mokshaika Sadhanam Pakasya Vah Nivajnanam Vina Moksho Na Siddhyate. That just as for cooking, the Agni is the direct cause that is required. You may need the other things to build up. I was saying in the apparent journey from 93 to 95, I had to practice ethics. The Jiva had fallen to such level that one of my friends, I rejoined him, highly ethical person. Then the consciousness gets regathered. Practice of ethics turns one inward. What is unethical living? What is allowing oneself to speak lies? There one is totally outward. Success is so important that even at the cost of lying, you need success. So totally outward turn. Whereas when one takes on the responsibility to speak truth, then the attention is on the Atman to some extent. That not the challenge, not the goal that is important, but what I react. Am I going to be truthful? So that had to be done for some years for me. So all those may be required. Then bhakti. I was doing japa for some years. All those may be required, like the dhal, the rice, the unse handu, all that which is required for the cooking, and the stones that are required, everything. But if you don't have the Agni, this exactly happens in one of the picnics that Bhagavan takes. That from Skandashramam, they decide to take a picnic up the hill. And they say so much distance is there. They have taken all the cooking items and everything is ready. The stones are ready, the wood is ready, but no matchbox. The matchbox is missing. And Bhagavan laughingly quotes this verse, the verse number 2 from Atma Bodha. So this is why Shankara has said that Pakasya Nivajnanam, the awareness is the essential element in jnana, in liberation, just as Agni is essential cause, is the direct cause for cooking. It actually transpires, and that event anecdote is narrated by, I think it is in letters from Sri Ramana, but it is well documented that Bhagavan says, see, this is exactly what Shankara had in mind. He says that jnana is the finishing or the direct touch that is required to complete the liberation. And if you see the devotees of Bhagavan who have come through the Bhakti Marga, like Mudaliar Party, Ramnath Brahmachari, they all are jnanis. The awareness is so self-luminous in them that Mudaliar Party treats Bhagavan like a friend, like no other devotee could. Like even the manager would be trembling in his shoes while near Bhagavan, and Party would be treating him as a friend, which is possible only in total awareness. And she would have brought lots of food. He would have taken Party's food for 40 years. That 40 years she serves food to him, and he will have that as a first thing or as part of the food in the leaf along with ashram food. And that day she would have served him more as her share. And Ramana will be complaining that, see, if you serve so much, I have to do justice to their preparation also. And Mudaliar party will say, what is there, Bhagavan? Is it not all in the mind? And Ramana will say to others, she is paying me back in my own medicine. What can I do? And that is the bhakti, those bhaktas who have so diligently offered themselves to Bhagavan, they also complete the journey as jnanis. In fact, Bhagavan says the jnani is the best bhakta and karma yogi. So it must be true the other way also. That one who is a Purna Bhakta, totally surrendered one, is also blessed with jnana, as the Gita Acharya assures that once they surrender, I give them the Buddhi Yoga also. I am not having much time to go into the other verses, but it is all gold. And if one is interested in meditating on those verses, they will surely act as a bridge to self-enquiry. One will understand how self-enquiry does the Nididhyasana asked of by Shankara in verses 31 to 41. What Nididhyasana Shankara asks for objectively, self-enquiry directly does subjectively. This will become clearer and clearer, and one will be able to practice Atma-vichara directly. May I stop here so that if there are some questions, I can answer with the rider that I can say no when I don't know. Thank you.
So, why is the answer to who am I always being understood and taught as silence? Why not I am Brahman, I am Arunachala? Why is it not a positive answer rather than a silence? This is for my real learning, please.
After the Hridaya Kuhara Madhye Kevalam Brahma Matram Aham Aham Iti Sakshat Atmarupeda Bhati Hridivisha Manasa Swam Chinvata Majjata Va Pavana Chalana Rodat Atmanishto Bhavatvam. There is one more verse. Deham Mrinmayavat Jadatmakam Aham Buddhir Na Tasyastyato Naham Tat Tadabhava Shukti Samaye Siddhatma Sadbhavatah. From here, Koham Bhava Yutah Kuto Varadhya Drishtatma Nishtatmana Soham Spurti Taya Arunachala Shivaha Purno Vibhati Swayam. Actually, there is an answer that when we ask the Koham, the who am I, it is only to the Ishvara we are asking. Ishvara's self is what is given as the goal, but the active portion of the self is the Ishvara Shakti. So there is no way we are directing any quest to anybody else. So when we are asking Arunachala or by whatever name we call the Ishvara Shakti, the question, who am I? And we are not asking anything else. Only this is the singular question we are asking. Koham bhava yutah kuto varadhiya. When our dhi is going towards that, drishtatma nishtatmana. So we are paying attention only to the I. Then Shiva himself will rise and say as Shivoham, Shivoham, Shivoham. Soham Spurti Taya Arunachala Shivaha. The silence is not a void. It is the fullness of self-luminous self. It is the Shakti. It is a real answer. But it is the Akanda Akara Vritti. It is in our normal experience, there is the seer seeing seen, the knower knowing known. But in the answer, it is Akanda Akara. It consumes the Triputi. And there is this answer. But what Ramana says is, don't ask anything of that Akanda Akara Vritti. Don't ask anything. Don't pray for anything. Don't request anything. Just be quiet. Just be quiet, holding the Akanda Akara Vritti, that is Shiva in the Spurana, I. Then it will burn all your I am the body idea, and it will also quieten down. Shiva himself will quieten down into his self, like camphor, the fire in camphor, with nothing to burn in us, the Soham Spurti, Shivoham Spurti will also quieten, and that quietness which has consumed everything and has nothing to burn, that is the Atman, says Bhagavan. See that the answer is there, and without going through the answer, we are not going to come to the self. Shiva himself or the Ishvara Shakti itself raises as the answer when the Jiva asks this singular question. It consumes the Jiva and the Tripudi experience and shines singularly. But what the teacher, Guru says is, don't ask anything of that Shakti. You hold it and keep quiet, and it will take you to the self in one sense. You are the self, and the Jnani doesn't even posit the requirement of that Ishvara. It says that you will go to the, but this is the experience that there is an answer. It is not that the quest does not have an answer, but it is no more in the way of an object
verbal
seen
form.
by the Jiva.
It's not verbal.
It is not in the thought form. It is the Akanda Akara Vritti. It simply consumes you and is self-luminously present. I don't know whether I have answered, because it
Very
is
much.
beyond answer in this area.
Thank you so
Best
much.
to come.
Very nicely put. We have clarified that.